Hello there, everyone. Lovely to see you, and welcome again to this edition of the podcast. Now, we are back again with Duncan Balcon, I mean, which story from Watson's Daily would you like to talk about today?
Yeah, so I said this to you earlier. I was sold on this story from 4 words in when it used the word scandalous.
Oh yeah,
So this is a story from the Wall Street Journal about Tesla. So it's another favourite topic of mine. We're talking about Tesla again, just for a change. But
yeah,
scandal and Tesla aren't two words that often go together. So I thought it was quite an interesting story.
hmm
So this story about the board of Tesla
yeah,
opening up a search for a CEO potentially to replace Elon Musk, which doesn't sound too scandalous until you read the article further, and it then kind of becomes a bit muddy as to whether Elon Musk is 100% aware of this or not.
mm,
So the article talks about board members contacting executive search firms to look into finding a new chief exec for the firm. Um, so there are also within the article a few anecdotal instances about Musk wanting this and thinking
mm,
that he needs to step back a bit.
yeah,
Those anecdotal instances also, I think, quite rightly mention the fact that Musk wants to step back, but is concerned no one could replace him, which I think is a fairly valid concern.
mm,
Massive company that is, let's be honest, really associated with one person more than what they actually do.
yeah,
I think I said to you earlier, I think if you play the word association game with Tesla and said, first thing that comes in your head when you say Tesla, I think more people would say Elon Musk than would say electric
mm,
vehicles.
mm,
And I think that is a problem to start with, but also I think makes this kind of concern of someone taking over from Elon Musk a fairly valid one.
mm,
But then, like I said, those are anecdotal instances. So there's also that kind of, like I said, the reason it's scandalous is because you don't know, are those true? Or are they actually trying to replace him and he's not 100% on board with it? But then there's the kind of angle of this where actually, yeah, Tesla's kind of does cars quite well.
mm,
People know them for that. But there's other branches to the business as well, which you could argue Elon Musk would be better kind of place spending his time there, looking at
mm,
how they do a lot of automation stuff, a lot of robotics stuff,
mm,
and he's so good at that area and selling things like that and getting investment from people that actually finding a new CEO for Tesla might be the best thing both for Tesla and for those other projects,
mm,
in terms of that it allows Tesla to have a bit of separation from Elon Musk as a person. So
mm,
you've got a brand that exists without its figurehead, which I think is always a good place to be. I'm personally concerned if Elon Musk got ill tomorrow and was out of action for 6 months, what would happen to Tesla? I don't think it would do very well. So
mm,
I think that kind of separation is quite important. But also it would then free his time up to concentrate on other things and maybe expand other areas. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. The actual base story itself, it all kind of makes sense until you then sit there and go, well, does he know this is happening or not? Which is why, like I said, the word scandal really jumped out at me, because if he doesn't know that's happening, that's not ideal.
mm,
If he's completely on board with it, different story. And I think the kind of final, unfortunately unavoidable thing to mention with this at the moment is actually, if you were a board member at Tesla, would you want someone who is so polarizing in public opinion to be your CEO?
mm,
Um, I'm not going to lean one way or the other on this, but
mm,
most people have an extreme opinion of Elon Musk one way
mm,
or the other.
yeah,
Very pro, very con. And that, I think, breeds a sort of instability that isn't great for a massive company.
mm,
Particularly, like I said, when that brand is so associated with him as a person, more
mm,
so than what they actually do. So I think, yeah, like I said, I think for Tesla, having a different CEO might be a really good thing.
yeah,
And actually, for the other the projects and other products and other services that Elon Musk is involved with, it might be a good thing as well. So
mm,
yeah, I just thought really, really interesting story. Lots to it,
mm,
which is, I'm having to paraphrase quite a lot because obviously we can't talk for 6 hours on the
no,
podcast.
no.
But loads and loads of, like, I've scoped to talk about this. So yeah, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I mean it's a very good article. If you can read the full version, it's in the Wall Street Journal. I I think well, so first of all, they said that this was happening. I don't think that's that shocking because if you think about the way that the Tesla share price has been going, um, over the last few months, and the reaction, the extreme reaction that we've witnessed with protests, graffiti, and all the memes, all this stuff. I think that you know, we've seen a reaction to Tesla that I think it would be fair to say that we could not have foreseen 6 months ago. And I think that he's, once he started working within the White House, I think there was a lot of, well, first of all, there was some euphoria because I think investors are thinking, oh, this is great. He's got the inside track of the White House. Oh, he's going to be in Doge. He's going to have access to all this information. So he's going to make some amazing business decisions. And so there was a lot of euphoria. But then after that, I think it has been gradually replaced with, wow, we're quite shocked at how he is behaving. But also a case of, what damage is he doing to his brands? I mean, I would argue that maybe his most public-facing brands are Tesla and X, I guess. And I think the difficulty with Tesla is that it is physical form, so it's easy for people who don't like what he says to attack the things that they see driving around. But anyway, yeah. So I think that it is it. I think it, and I've said this in the podcast also with Ralph. I really believe that he needs to step back. I think he needs to step back a bit. I think that he needs to get CEOs in there, and maybe he could be the chairman, and then he has CEOs who are then pushed as being the face of those companies. So rather than the press going to him asking for a comment on XAI or something, they go to, whoever it is, who is the CEO. And I think that way he gets the best of all worlds. He can pull the strings in the background, and also he gets an extra sort of safety layer in case things don't go well, and then he can just blame the CEO and fire them, get another one. So I think that although maybe they won't have wanted this to come out publicly, I don't think it is something that he should get particularly angry about. I mean, maybe he'll show it in public and go, of course it wasn't me. Yeah, of course they weren't doing it. But in private, maybe he thought, well, yeah, maybe. You never know. But anyway, yeah. So I think that he needs to step back. I think that maybe for all of his companies potentially, because I think that succession planning is often very bad. I'd say it's more often badly executed than it is well executed. But I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think particularly in these sorts of situations where you've not only got the CEO, but they're also the founder, they're also the face you instantly think of when you think of the brand. I think succession planning, like I said, is very important, but also generally not done well. And that kind of, it takes time, don't you right? It takes time to get that succession and to get the separation of person from the company in terms of the public perception, particularly as I would imagine in most cases, someone else takes over, the company dips a little bit because people aren't sure what to expect. And you have to, I think, stick with it long enough to see it come back up again. And I think, obviously, a lot of, particularly these kind of businessmen, and there's a lot of the businessmen, businesswomen that have grown a company from their garage up to a massive international corporation. I can see why they struggle to let go and not still be actively involved with every decision. So I think particularly in those situations like you've got with Tesla, where it's a founder CEO, I think succession planning is often not done well. But for a company the size of Tesla and with everything it's got going on, it needs to be done well. And like I said, there's nothing to stop him appointing a CEO for each company and him still being chairman of the group of companies. And like I say, maintaining that actual power over everything whilst having a figurehead that separates it from him, someone that is very easily replaceable should he want to. Someone you can shift the blame onto, even if it was your idea in the first place. And I think, like I said, in terms of the longevity and kind of legacy of the companies, that is what needs to happen. and probably for him as well. Do you know what I mean? It can't be easy trying to manage all those companies at once and having a White House position
No,
as well.
no.
So I think the best thing for everybody would be for that to happen, whatever form that takes. So I think that step back is something that needs to happen from all sides, really,
Yeah,
from all to benefit.
yeah, definitely. And I think that is a key point that you made there about the succession planning, particularly of founder CEOs, because I think, to get something off the ground, and be successful is incredibly difficult, and requires huge amounts of drive, resilience, energy, and you're not going to get the same thing from someone else. They're not going to have the same attitude towards it, because as a founder CEO, you live and breathe what it is you do, and that becomes your identity. So anyway, yeah, I think this is really good. This is interesting. I think we've got succession planning. This could be interesting from a succession planning point of view. It could become a model for what happens in his other companies that will free him up to maybe do more strategy, perhaps, and leave some of the more day-to-day stuff to his trusted lieutenants. And I mean, I would have thought it'd be quite attractive to work for him, because I would have thought, again, he's a difficult man, and if you can put in a good few years with someone like that, that's gonna, even if you were fired or something, I think it would still look good on the CV. So yeah.
Yeah, it would. I think, because as much as he could be a difficult man to work for, you would be in a position at the cutting edge of whatever technology group you're involved in, and I don't think that can ever really be a bad thing for you, unless you are involved in some scandal that gets you fired.
Yeah,
I think being at the cutting edge of EVs, or the cutting edge of automation, or the cutting edge of robotics can't be a bad thing for your CV going forwards.
I mean, I do wonder what happens. Do you remember that lady that made a big thing of sleeping on the floor in the office and stuff? Was it at X? And then, I mean, she got fired like a month later. So, you kind of wonder what happens there. But anyway,
I'm sure she's picked up another position somewhere else.
Yeah.
I hope so, anyway.
Yeah, you would hope so. Maybe Airbnb or something. Sorry. If she's listening, which she's not, obviously, I would apologise. Sorry, that was very insensitive of me to say that. Right.
So moving swiftly on from that, what story do you like to talk about today?
Yeah. So today, I really liked. There was a story. I'm looking at it now. So from the Financial Times, it says, meet the new investment banker, an AI chatbot, and it talks about this chatbot called Rogo, and basically what it can do is it can quantify sort of so it can look at the market. It can see a company, let's say your client company, what its market position is, who the competitors are, do some valuation metrics and stuff. And it has been used at a few places, so Moelis, Nomura, and Tiger Global, and GTCR. And the idea is that this AI chatbot can do a lot of the donkey work that investment bankers do, or junior investment bankers do, in minutes as opposed to weeks or months. Now, I think it's very interesting that the person that basically came up with this is an ex-analyst at Lazard. So clearly, they know what it's like. And I thought this was really interesting because obviously there's a lot of talk about chatbots. There's a lot of talk about AI replacing people's jobs, and it being particularly making a lot of white collar jobs particularly vulnerable. I can understand that this is, this could be really good. This could make things much more efficient. But my concern is that it will mean that there will probably be fewer junior investment bankers being allowed into the profession, because there won't be so much need for them. And I think, although maybe that looks good from a cost basis from the company's perspective, I don't think it's good from an evolution perspective, because I think that these people will. So if you get fewer junior investment bankers coming in, there will be fewer of them, that actually get to the top, and I think that's tough. But I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. This, on the face of it, looks like a really good thing, doesn't it? You see, they're taking the donkey work out, reducing the amount of due diligence, reducing the amount of kind of legwork at the bottom end.
Mm.
But my first thought after that was, actually, does that then weaken the talent pool for the senior level positions? Like, if you've got less investment bank, less juniors, there's going to be less people going for each senior role. And also, we had I say similar story. It's not, because it's a completely different industry. But there was something about AI. I won't say 12 to 18 months ago, that was more focused on the legal sector and doing contract law and taking that off junior level associates. And I think at the time we both went, well, that's well and good, but that's where you learn the skills to do the senior job.
Yeah.
And like with the investment banking world, those people, like you said, that are in those kind of more customer facing top level positions ordinarily have gone through years, decades worth of doing all of that hard kind of graft, so that when they're client facing, they have so much information up here in between the ears that actually they can just concentrate on building the relationship, and they know that information is just going to come out and they need it. And my concern would be, I think, that if you take away a lot of that junior level work from people and replace it with AI, do the senior level people have the amount of knowledge in their heads that they would have done even kind of 10 years ago to kind of best benefit the client? And then that comes on to the fact that this is still a client facing role, doesn't it? And I would argue a lot of people would still much rather, particularly when we're talking about large sums of money, much rather deal with an experienced human being than a very capable bot. I just think there's something about that human element, particularly when we're talking massive sums of money and personal investment and things like that. I think,
yeah, I mean, there's trust.
I would personally rather deal with a human, but that might just be me.
No, I think that there's trust, but there's also accountability, because you've got someone you can blame. If it goes wrong, they can come back and shout at you. Whereas if you say, "Oh, that's what AI said," well, you're not really, there's not really much comeback from that.
Well, and I suppose if one of your investments takes a little bit of a wobble price-wise as well, you know who you've dealt with. You can ring the company up, speak to the person and go, what's going on? And they can probably reassure you fairly quickly or explain why it's happening.
And they do.
Like, you haven't got that accountability.
Yeah, they will ring up their investment bankers. They will ring them up. They will say, what's going on here?
Yeah, my XYZ investment has taken a bit of a nosedive. Is wondering what's going on. You can't have that conversation with, I imagine, with a bot as easily.
No. It's more a case of like, this is a very, very rough explanation of how it works, right? So on the investment banking side, what will happen is you will have small teams of people who usually specialize in an industry or a small group of industries. And this will be made up of a few juniors who will do the donkey work. So they will spend their time making financial models, finding out, about competitors and all this kind of stuff, putting it, packaging it, and basically keeping really, really up to date with it all. And then you get the senior bod who tends to have known the clients, the corporate clients. So these are big corporates. They'll be big corporates, and they will talk to them from time to time. And I mean, it's a while ago, but basically when I started in the city, in one place I worked, we had a true, an actual legend, on our as I don't know if he was head of investment. I don't think he was head of investment banking, but this guy was the deal guy, and he was so quiet and unassuming you'd never know. But this guy, if you mentioned his name anywhere, probably in the world, people would know who he was. I mean, most people wouldn't, but if you are in the world of investment banking, you would absolutely know who this is. And it was amazing because from an outsider's point of view, you're thinking, well, all he does is he goes and has coffee with people all day, or goes down his members club or something, and that's all he does. Well, what's that? Well, the thing is that he will have been through years of the usual investment banking drudgery that you have to go through. And it used to be, certainly used to, I don't know, I mean, I presume it's still the same now, is that we always used to refer to it as dead man's shoes, in terms of progression at places like this, because they, unless that person left, either retired, died, or went to a different place, there's no space for you. You literally have to stay in it until someone leaves, and then you might be offered the chance to step up. And the thing is that this donkey work that I mean, I often see this in a lot of, I follow various Instagram accounts for a bit of fun, and you get these accounts that are, say, from investment banking ones and management consulting ones, who are always poking fun at the mundane aspects of the job. The fact that they're spending so long on font sizes in PowerPoint and stuff. They're all of this, but what they don't see, and I do sound like an old man, like when I say this, and I am an old man. I mean, grey hairs. They're grey hairs. But it's not until later that you actually realise that, in fact, all that boring stuff actually really helped. It helped you to get a much deeper understanding, which then makes you better for the clients. And I was saying to you earlier about again when I was broking. I don't think this is legal anymore, but it was a bit, it was getting close to the line back then. But I was doing sales, but I was also doing the settlements stroke back office side of the role as well. Especially when I was stationed in Tokyo. And so I would have Tokyo clients. They would deal, they would buy and sell stuff on the London Stock Exchange. I would do that, and then I had to communicate it back to them. And then, because of the time difference, so the time difference in Japan's about 8 or 9 hours ahead. I had to take decisions on things because there was no one at who was in the London office at the time. And so, again, I was saying that what they would do is they're trading UK stocks, and they would be exchanging dollar to pound or yen to pound or something. And I had to take the decision because you can't just wait. There is a forex risk if you leave something for like 9 hours or whatever it is. And just to give you an idea of how urgent it is, when I was doing the forex for these transactions, you have a 2-second window. So I would have a forex broker on one phone. I mean, this is very old school, but on one phone, and I have the client on the other. And the guy on the forex phone, he would say, "Okay, your rate is. I'm going to give you this rate," and then I would then have to say to the client on the other phone, "Okay, this is the rate," and we had to decide like within 2 seconds, otherwise the rate changed again. So it was, doing all that. My Japanese client base were very, very particular about the settlement aspect and making sure everything was correct. And I know that by me, although it was the bane of my life at the time, and I absolutely hated that part of the job, what it did do is it made me so much better. So that when I went to talk to clients, and obviously I would talk about stocks and this, that, and the other. But if they said, "Oh, what happened to this trade, whatever," I could talk them through it, no problem, because I knew everything. I knew how it works. And that, I think, although in many jobs, it's not the same in every job, I must admit, but certainly in some jobs, you do certain parts of work that feel at the time like they are not necessary. It's a waste of my time. Why am I doing this? But actually, it turns out that in fact it makes you better. And I think that's the problem with this AI chatbot, is that it will take the drudgery away, which is good. I'm not saying that I like drudgery, but what it might not, what it means is that, as we were saying earlier, it means that there'll be fewer spaces for juniors to come in. they won't learn quite as much maybe as people in before them, and then that means that either they're more likely to fail and not reach that senior position, or they're just gonna it just when if they do get to that position, they might not be as good. So yeah, I mean, I know you were saying that about the the in the law, weren't you?
Yeah. As I said, we had a similar story with, I think it was specifically around contracts and getting some variety of AI bot to draft contracts. And I think it's similar in the sense that I think if you don't put in that, like I say, drudgery or perceived, like, or the paragraph at the perceived lower level, I
Mm,
think it becomes a lot more difficult to excel at the higher level,
mm,
because that needs to be second nature. That all that stuff
mm.
underpinning knowledge needs to be second nature to
Yeah.
then, I think, excel at the high level. Because once you're that, like I said, that senior position, you're much more a salesperson than you are a banker or a lawyer or whatever.
Mm,
You're trying to, you need to know that person's business inside out to convince them to do more business with you or to start doing business with you.
mm,
And as such, your knowledge of your own business has to be so infallible.
mm,
I think, like, so if you could, if that situation made me smile earlier, we were talking about with, oh yeah, he just goes for coffee.
mm,
But if you can just go for coffee and come back with £1 million of investment,
mm,
you obviously haven't gone with a PowerPoint. You haven't gone with a laptop
mm,
open to show people stuff. You've gone just knowing your stuff so well
mm,
that all you have to concentrate on is how that knowledge can benefit your client.
mm.
And I think that becomes so much more difficult if that underpinning knowledge isn't as rock solid. And
Mm.
my concern with AI doing that work is that that is never going to be as solid as it has been historically up to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to know. I mean, obviously, I haven't looked at what it comes out with and
Mm.
stuff, but it just feels to me that, um, this could make quite a big impact on the, on the whole industry. I think.
Yeah,
But there you go. And I think leaving it on with a big impact is what we're going to have to do today with this podcast.
sounds good to me.
So we're going to say thank you very much, and for and good night on that. But thank you, Duncan, for your thoughts as always.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
No problem, and we'll be back again. We'll be back again tomorrow. So thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Peter.
Bye.